Unicorns and glitter and taxidermy critters are just some of the things they like. They also enjoy 80s hair bands, Grizzly Adams and John Goodman, so if you think that's weird then you can take a hike. But the things they enjoy the most are making art and cracking jokes, so without further ado, here are your hosts. You've got your two artsy gals, your two artsy gals. Here are your two artsy gals.
Hey everybody, this is Katie.
And this is Sharon.
And this is the Two Artsy Gals podcast. And today we are going to talk a little bit about photographing your artwork. This is part 3 in our summer series that we've been doing about selling your art and the things that you need to know about it. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about photographing your artwork, and I think that we'll just jump right into this by talking about why you want to have good photos of your artwork. Like, what bad photographs say about your work to people. And
yeah, can I say one of my biggest pet peeves?
Please do.
Is when you go onto a site like, usually it's like Etsy, one of those sites that people sell their work for, and it is a blurry ass picture. I don't know how they're selling stuff, and sometimes they are. Or it's something just like held really far back and they're holding a scarf over their arm and it's blurry.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like you could at least make the picture not blurry.
Yeah. Or even like some people try, this is one of my pet peeves, people try to set up like an appealing scene or something when they take the picture. So
too much.
You don't know what the fuck you're looking at.
Oh God, yeah.
Like,
like,
are
you selling?
What are you selling? Are you selling the fucking vase of flowers in the picture? Are you selling the tablecloth? Like, what the fuck's going on?
Right. Yeah. Too much. You just want to see the item. Yeah.
And that's what you want to do with your work. And this is another huge pet peeve of mine, because we're just going to go down the don't list right out the door.
Right.
Don't fucking use Instagram filters.
No.
On your artwork. It's fine if you are good at using your phone, the camera on your phone, because let's face it, they're really good cameras on your phones these days. If you're good at using them, go ahead and do that. But don't put Instagram filters and shit on them.
No. Because, and then the other thing is,
it affects the color, it affects,
that's what I was going to say,
You're not seeing the product that's being sold as you would see it in person.
Right. Because even sometimes when I put things on, and I've just taken a standard picture, I know the color's not quite right.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put that in the description. But if you're doing an Instagram, yeah, that's going to totally foul up.
Color may vary. Because
yeah.
Most stuff I make, I mix the paint colors. I don't just use a color straight out of the tube.
Right.
So every time I mix a color, it's a little bit different. But also, depending on lighting or the time of day you took the photograph, sometimes there are things you can't control.
Correct. But if you're adding things like, the Instagram.
That actually happened to me. I ordered something from someone. What was it that I ordered? I think I ordered some yarn from someone on eBay. They had a lot of yarn and it looks really pretty, and I got it, and it wasn't. They had used like an Instagram filter. When I went back and looked at the picture, it had a bluer filter, and I don't know if they did it with like an Instagram filter or they did a really bad job photoshopping and tried to use color balance and got too much blue in it, but it was not the color that I thought it was.
Oh, wow.
Because my complexion, if I have anything with too much yellow in it, I look like I'm dying of liver disease. And they made this a much bluer color, and I was getting it to crochet a hat for myself.
Right, right next to your face.
Yeah, I'm gonna look like I have hepatitis. I can't wear this. This isn't terrible, because it was an aqua color. I love the color aqua. It's one of my favorites, because I'm wearing a tank top that's that color today.
Yeah.
But it was so greeny, yellowy when I got it. I was like, this looks nothing like. I sent it back. They gave me my money back, but you don't want to be doing that when you're selling stuff. You don't want to have to give people money back because your pictures were misrepresenting the item that you were selling.
Right. Exactly.
And I think shitty photos actually just kind of scream unprofessional too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and like that you don't care.
Exactly. Like, and why should someone want to buy something that you don't care about them seeing in the best possible light?
Right, exactly. And frankly, if you can't get a good picture and just can't figure out how to do it, hire somebody to do it. It doesn't have to be a professional. There might be a teenager in your neighborhood that's taking a photography class, or I don't know, the kids do that anymore.
Yeah, no, they do. They totally do.
Yeah, or just somebody that's really good at taking photos. My cousin takes great photos.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have a friend or relative that does really great photography, offer to pay him $20 or $30 to come over and photograph your work.
Or trade with them.
Yeah, or do a trade. Say, hey, I'll make you one of these if you come photograph this. But yeah. And I know we've all seen it. I think everyone that buys any kind of handmade product online has seen that photo where they're like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, so irritating.
Like, we're not going to talk about video today, but I'm just going to extend this little rant that this goes to videos too.
Yeah.
Like, if you're using videos, I'm not going to speak to that because I don't use video to sell my stuff. But if you're doing videos that are like a tutorial, you're selling anything like that,
have it in focus.
Have the video in fucking focus. Don't have music playing in the background. Right. And speak clearly. For the love of fucking sanity. Like, just like the videos make my head want to explode. So, like, if you can't stand watching it, nobody else can.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So. Exactly. Well, why don't we talk about some positive things to make your photos look good?
These are just like, I'm not a photographer, Sharon's not a photographer, and actually this is something that I have struggled with, getting good pictures of my artwork off and on. And it took advice from Sharon and advice from a couple other friends, and I actually took a very basic photography class in college that really helped me. And I think what people need to know, and people get scared when you start talking about photographing stuff, you don't have to sink a lot of money into equipment to be able to take good pictures of anything.
Not at all.
It's not necessary. And especially cameras these days, a little digital SLR.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you don't have to buy a $500 or $600 camera. You can buy a $200 camera. You can buy a $100 camera. And like I said, if you're really good at using it, you can use the camera on your cell phone.
Mm-hmm. A vast virus database has been updated.
And you don't, tripods. I really recommend using a tripod.
They're cheap.
I think I got mine for under $20.
Yeah. And you can get a lot of this stuff on Amazon. For a camera, I would say go to a photo shop in Portland. There's a great one called ProPhoto.
Mm-hmm.
And they can totally help you. But yeah, learn how to read the book. Learn how to use the little a camera that you get.
Yeah. And you can certainly use a point and shoot.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I prefer one where I can set the settings myself.
Mm-hmm.
But there are only 2 settings that I ever worry about. Let's talk a little bit about this right now. Like the difference between, like, a point and shoot is a camera that you basically probably just choose. It's been a while since I've used mine. I think you choose the lighting that you're using.
Mm-hmm.
Like whether it's outdoor light, indoor light, whatever. Like very minimal controls.
Yeah.
And you just point your camera and take a picture.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even with that, I would recommend using a little tripod.
Yeah.
And using the timer on your camera.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when you push the button, you don't realize you're moving.
Mm-hmm.
But you are moving the camera a little bit. And so you, like Sharon said, you want a clear photo. You don't want it to be blurry at all. So set your camera down, put it on a tripod, and use the 2 or 3 second timer. Push the button and step back and don't touch a fucking thing.
You can even get those little buttons that has like a little cord, and then you hold it out and push it.
Yeah, You can totally do that. In my experience, and I think most people will tell you. Well, first let's go back to the cameras with manual controls that I prefer using. There are only 2 settings that I ever worry about on this camera. Well, mine's a digital, so there are 3. I make sure that I have it set at the highest quality picture, which is what you want to do. Even with these little manual cameras, I only worry, and again, I'm not an expert. I only worry about the aperture and shutter speed settings. Use, like Sharon said, use your book. It'll tell you how to adjust those. And the biggest, most useful thing that I learned from the photography class that I took was about bracketing.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is just adjust those settings, because with a digital screen, you know, with a digital camera, you have a screen, you're looking at what it's going to look like.
Right.
As you do it. Find a setting, set the aperture and the shutter speed where you think it looks the best, and then take the picture, but also change the settings to the next lower and the next higher. So you're bracketing around what you think is good, because sometimes when you look at it on your computer screen and you think you have a good picture, it's not a good picture. So if you bracket one lower and one above, then you kind of have a choice. And you haven't just blown the whole setup.
Right.
You know, you don't have to go back out and try to do it again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Take several pictures while you're.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Even if you're using a point and shoot, take a few pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just take one and call it good. You want options.
Right. Exactly. Which kind of brings me to the next thing. Were you done talking about the different settings on the cameras?
Yeah.
You know, your setting where you're taking a picture, you can get light boxes or studio light boxes for really inexpensive on
cheap.
Amazon. Yeah, like $30 to $40, and it's a great little light box. It folds up all flat, but it comes with 2 lights. So, you know, if you live in the Pacific Northwest and you can't get nice daylight during the winter
you
by a
can't go
window
outside because it's raining like a mofo.
Right.
So.
Then you can use these little lights, and they give you a nice kind of natural quote unquote light. And
because it's like a little tent almost that you're sticking your stuff in, and the light shines through, so it's filtered light. So you're not getting glare.
No, yeah, it's
anything
diffused.
like that.
Yeah, and they're so worth it. And Katie, you said you got one that you ordered where you could take. It was
a kit. It had 2 sizes.
Yeah, so I just have the one, which I would take pictures of cards and jewelry in, but it sounds like you have one that you could put bigger things in.
Yeah, bigger things in. And I took a picture of all of my journals, and like the journals that I sell. I think I had 8 or 9 journals in it at once.
Wow.
So I know my cat tries to get in there and sleep when I set it up. Like, it's big.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually the best piece of advice I've ever gotten, and it was from Sharon about getting a light box, because sometimes the work that I do has light will reflect off of it.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get a good picture without a glare in it. And I don't have that problem anymore because I use the light box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a valuable tool. And like I said, especially, you know, I see a lot of nice pictures like on Etsy of things that were like done outdoors, but it's really frustrating if it's just pouring down rain and you can't wait till summer to sell that item.
Or even if you do have your item has a reflective surface, you don't really want to be out in the sunlight and the sunshine, because you're going to get that glare, and it's going to people aren't going to be able to see the details that you want them to see because of that glare. That was the big frustration that I had the most because I'll admit, when I post pictures on my art blog, I'm lazy. I use my cell phone. You know, I might edit them really quickly, and sometimes I do like I'll post a picture on Instagram and then use it later on my blog. But I never do that with artwork when I list it on Etsy or
if you're selling it.
For selling it, I always try to have high quality photos.
Yeah, because that is different. Yeah, because you want to represent your artwork appropriately when somebody's buying it.
See, and that's just it. Like, if you care and you care about selling your work, you need to show that you do care.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that what it says to me when I see a really shitty photograph of something that I might otherwise buy, I think, well, how much care did that person take in really making that item if they're not taking care to take a good picture of it?
Well, shit, it pisses me off when there's blurry pictures on Craigslist for something.
I know, it does me too. I know, and I just posted a blurry picture on Craigslist. Because I didn't have anything else. It was for my garage sale I had last weekend, and I was like, fuck it, I'm not going back down there and taking that picture again. So, I don't know. That's probably why I didn't sell. But, see, I didn't sell it.
It didn't sell it.
So, yeah. You know, it's just that attention to detail. that's really, really important. And I think it speaks a lot about the kind of artist you are, the kind of craft person you are. And it speaks a lot about your work. Because I've also bought things that I think people took slightly blurry, crappy pictures of to really disguise something that was wrong with the item.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've gotten things that were like broken or had a big scratch in them or something. And I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't see that in the picture.
Right.
And then I look at the picture and I'm like, oh, it's slightly
blurry.
That's one thing I want to talk about too really quickly is Photoshop or photo editing.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know how to use Photoshop, don't fucking use Photoshop. Just don't.
Yeah.
Really, like, do not, like, and maybe it's because I'm a graphic designer, I can spot a bad Photoshop job from a mile away, but most people can anyway. Like,
yeah.
Don't fuck around with it. Don't over edit your photos.
Right.
Because again, you're going to change the coloring. You're going to do something that makes it not represent what the item really is.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. The only thing I do in Photoshop, when I take a photo, I go in, sometimes I adjust the white balance if I have to. But again, if I'm using my box, I never have to adjust the white balance.
Yeah.
So I go in, I resize it for the size that I need. And sometimes I sharpen it a little bit. But in general, that's all I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, and I crop.
Yeah, crop and
crop
resize.
It or resize it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's all. And sometimes if I want a close-up of something, like I crop in really close and make another, like, I get a detail shot that way. But you don't over-edit your photos.
No.
And
take a good picture to start with.
Yeah, take a good solid picture to start with, and you don't need to edit that much. But also, most cameras, I think, come with editing software. I happen to have, I know most people don't have the full fucking design suite from Adobe, so they're not going to have Photoshop. Or even if you have, there are smaller versions of Photoshop you can buy. If you don't know how to use it, you're not going to use it right. Like, take the time to learn. You know, you might even you can get into photography, a digital photography class for pretty cheap at a community college, like a non-credit course.
Yeah.
It might behoove you to take a quick class. If you're an amateur and you're not good at it, it's going to show. And it's going to make it's going to make your pictures look bad. That's another thing that I kind of, just speaking of picture quality, and I know I said to set it to high quality on your camera, but you want to take the highest resolution photograph that you can. Especially if you have any intention of using your images in a print.
Absolutely.
So you want it to be at least 300 DPI when you take a picture, or when you scan, like some people scan their artwork, or scan cards or something, and it's just easier. When you're scanning things, you want it to be, if you have any intention to print it at any time, scan it at 300 DPI, and then you don't need that big, for web stuff, you don't need anything higher than 72, because monitors can't see anything higher resolution than 72
right
DPI. You can change the resolution in your editing software.
Yeah.
So you want to start with because you can't add more dots per inch. You can take them away, but you can't add more detail. So if you start with a really good high quality image, and then you can save a different copy of it that is a 72 DPI for your web stuff, and then have one for your print stuff.
Right, yeah.
So, but you want to start with the highest quality image that you can.
Absolutely.
So, and I don't know if we've already said this or not, but don't use a flash.
Oh, I don't think you did. Yeah, it'll just wash out everything.
Yeah, flash washes it out. It changes the color. You get really bad glare. Like,
yeah.
That's another thing that a light box will help with. But even if you're photographing something that's too big for a light box, you don't have to spend a ton of money on fancy light setup, studio light setup. I went to A-Boy, the hardware store up the street here, and I bought one of those, those little lights that for a work area that are an aluminum can. They're just an aluminum reflector. You screw the bulb into it, and I I paper clip, like with the little grabby paper clips, the clampy ones. I paper
The bulldogs?
Yeah. I paper clip a piece of printer paper over it to diffuse the light.
Yeah.
That works great.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't spent a ton of money. And actually, you can clamp it wherever you want it. So it's kind of a little bit more mobile than
Right.
the
Yeah.
big light stands and stuff.
Yeah, so there's lots of things that you can do on the cheap to get a good photo.
Yeah. And if you don't have, like, if you don't have a light box, so say you don't have any of that and you don't want to invest the money in them. Like, and again, really the light boxes, I think that mine that came with 2 and the lights and it came with a tripod, it was a whole kit. I think it was $65 on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was cheap.
Yeah.
So you can find plans online for making your own light boxes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you can do that. Or I would say bare bones, I would wait until after dark. And especially if you're photographing more than one thing or taking more than one picture of the thing that you want to sell, you want consistent lighting.
Mm-hmm.
So I would wait till after dark, turn a light on, even if you have to get like a lamp and set it near it or an overhead light, put it out on a table, put a flat, I would just get a plain sheet or a tablecloth, set it down. So white is great or dark blue or like just a solid color. It's going to contrast with your item. Iron it. Make sure there's no wrinkles in it. Like, you don't want anything to distract from your image. And then set it down and take a few pictures of it in consistent lighting all the time without flash.
Yeah.
Because that's really the key, is not getting a glare and being consistent and taking the time to make sure that your item looks good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
So take a little care, people.
No, and you know, I mean, like, because you're going to be ultimately, the more effort that you put into presenting what you're selling, the more successful you're going to be at selling it.
Absolutely.
And it's the bottom line there.
Take home message.
Take out message. Don't be lazy. No. No. Let's get into more a little bit. I feel like maybe we can talk a little bit more about setting a photo up.
Okay.
We've talked about lighting, and we talked about consistency and cameras and stuff. So, and I mentioned a little bit about, you know, having a tablecloth or a sheet or something. You want a really plain background.
Yeah.
For your image. You don't want to throw a paisley sheet in, or a paisley tablecloth in behind a little tiny pair of earrings or a little piece of artwork that you're trying to photograph, because people aren't going to fucking find it, and the paisley is going to be like, wow, in their eyes and stuff. So
yeah, a little distracting. Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah, I have a piece of poster board, like the foam core board that I bought, and sometimes I just keep it and I tack it to the wall, and then it's white. So if I want to set something up against it that's white, I put something up against it. Or I just use little straight pins and pin a piece of fabric or a piece of paper that's a solid color onto it. You know, or you can make like a little, I have a cardboard box that I cut the sides and the front off of. So it's just a little, or I cut the front off of it. So it just makes a little, there's no top and no front, but there's, so you can just set stuff in there. And it makes a nice little even colored contrast to what you're photographing.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, and then you're just kind of talking about props, like not in your, you know, like what are you selling? I mean, I think if like a simple prop, if you need to lay a piece of jewelry across something, you know, like a piece of wood or a display or something, but not adding like flowers and a whole bunch of distracting things in the picture to take away from the item.
No, because you want to highlight your item only. And as far as like, I don't know, I've been looking at, I look at a lot of crochet patterns. I buy a lot of crochet patterns that's the biggest purchase I make on Etsy is crochet patterns. People spend a couple bucks and buy like a mannequin head or like even those clear glass heads. Or the foam heads, or I've seen it, I think Joann's and Michael's both carry like the little fake arm or the little fake, you know, they're meant to display jewelry.
Right,
They're
exactly.
cheap. Just buy something.
Right.
to display it. So because you don't want to hang it off of something
teddy
that's
bear.
gonna be, a teddy bear or something like people are gonna be like, what? Are you selling the teddy bear? Are you selling the what? And that's another thing, people that use models. So if you're using a model to model whatever thing that you're selling, make sure that you're highlighting the thing that you're selling and not your hot girlfriend. Because I've seen pictures on especially Etsy. I'm like, so is this like a semi-porn shoot or like, I don't understand what's happening here. I don't want to look at this bitch's cleavage. I want to look at the necklace you're selling. So, yes, your girlfriend's cute or your friend's cute or you're super cute, but presumably you're not selling any of those things on Etsy or
right.
Craigslist or, whatever. If you are, that's, I don't know, do your own thing. But when you're selling something else, you don't want the distraction from what you're selling.
Right. Yeah.
And I have a few, I'm not this kind of girl, but I know, like, if you're selling jewelry to women, I have girlfriends and relatives and people I know who, I don't know how to say it, they get defensive about other good-looking women.
Oh.
So they're going to be like, I'm not buying that. Just because they see a pretty girl, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
You just don't want to. You don't want to give anybody any reason to look at anything other than what you're selling. Basically, is what I'm saying. So
yeah, absolutely.
You don't need a model. You need someone to model your jewelry.
Right.
There's a difference.
Exactly.
So, or to model your clothing, or to model your artwork, or anything. You just You want the focus to be that.
That's funny.
I don't know. It is funny sometimes, though, especially when you're. Like, when you buy the crochet patterns, a lot of times they show the item that's being made, already made, so you can see what it is. And there's always, every once in a while, I come across one, and I'm like, what?
Oh, whoa!
I'm so freaking confused by this. Like,
yeah, I've seen that before on Ravelry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that too. That one too.
That's funny.
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of good here. Is there anything else that you want to? Anything else you feel like people need to know about photographing their work?
I don't think so.
I think actually one thing though I want to make sure that people understand is different websites that you would list things for sale have different photo size and quality requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure when you're taking your photographs, like I said, start with the highest resolution, biggest image that you can, because sometimes there's a limit to the size.
True.
So you can always take something away from a photograph, a digital photograph. You can never add it back and maintain the quality of the photograph. So you can crop it down and make it smaller. You can lower the resolution, whatever, but you can never add to that. So read on the website before you start adding stuff to it, and make sure that you have stuff edited ahead of time to the size that you need.
Right.
And it saves time in putting up your ads, but it also saves time with people, like some websites, if you're putting stuff up and you don't have it at the size, it just automatically crops it the way, like it doesn't give you an option to crop it within.
Right.
So it ends up cutting off part of the image or something like that. And speaking of changing sizes, I would say a big tip is to always have, when you're doing any editing to a photograph, make a copy of it.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
Always save the original image, so you always have a good high quality image that is not messed with. And the easiest way to do that is when you open the image, just click save as right away and say, Etsy necklace 1 or whatever. So it's saving it as a completely different file from the original image.
Right.
That you have. So you don't ever have to worry about damaging that image, because if you totally screw something up and you don't have an original saved, then you've screwed up the picture and you can't go back to it and go, whoa, I need to start over. That looks like crap.
Right. Exactly. Such a good point.
So, and I learned that the hard, you learn those lessons the hard way.
Right.
So,
exactly.
like, oh, boo. Now I don't have a picture at all. So yeah, that would be my last takeaway. And also, I think just take your time when you're doing stuff like that. You know, don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a rush. Just take the time and make sure that you are honoring your work.
Right.
When you do that.
Exactly.
One thing I wanted to mention, and I forgot to mention last week, is that we have a survey up on our blog site, and you can go to our blog at 2rcgals.wordpress.com. I'll link the survey again this week also. But it's a survey, we want to know how we're doing, if you're liking the topics that we choose, if there are topics that you would like to hear about that we haven't spoken about so far. We also want to know technical stuff like how the sound is, how the production quality of our podcasts are, and we have a few other questions that we just kind of want some feedback. It's been about, actually, Sharon, did you realize we've been doing this for 4 months now?
Wow.
It's kind of blown by pretty fast. So
yeah.
I just wanted to, at this point, I know we have a small core listener group. I just want to make sure that there's not anything that we could be doing better to bring a quality show to you. Or if there's stuff, because again, Sharon and I are eventually going to run out of ideas for our shows. Yeah. So we would really like feedback from our listeners to let us know things that you want to hear about too. So
yeah, absolutely.
So please check that out. Head on over to our blog and fill out the survey for us really quick. It's a short little survey. The link will take you to a SurveyMonkey site, and I think it's all anonymous too. So we won't know who you are if you say something mean, but we'll call you out on the podcast.
That's right.
So, and if you have any questions about this episode or any questions about another episode, or if you have some tips for our listeners that we didn't talk about as far as photography and your artwork goes, you can send those to 2artsygals@gmail.com. And as always, you can subscribe to our podcast on Stitcher and on iTunes, and you can listen to those through both of their apps for your phone or on your computer. So do that, because then you don't have to worry about when we post a new episode. It just automatically shows up in your app. So you can listen to us. All right.
Until next week, make some cool shit.
Yeah, what Sharon said. Make some cool shit. Bye.
Bye.